mode.
To see a lot of the real broad strokes information about your balance and network, firmware builds, WAN connectivity, etc. With the WAN details, you'll certainly be able to drill in and be able to see IP, subnet, gateway, all your connectivity status. In addition, balance information. You'll be able to see uptime. The real cool feature on the enterprise models here on current firmware is our fan speed and temperature ratings. So you can actually go in and start to tell more if a unit is overheating or not. And then we go to the setup wizard. The setup wizard, of course, is one of our basic configuration options we have available to get your unit up and running quickly and very easily in most setups. First screen, of course, is just the go ahead and let you know that you're about to begin the process. The next step is deciding on a drop-in mode capable unit if you do want to deploy in such a way. And then you go through your WAN configuration options, or on the Velocity series, you'll go right to this step as well. How many WAN ports you're wanting to set up, upload and download speeds, what type of connection, etc. And then you move on to just some of the systemic information, with designating your time zone for the unit, and then confirming what you've got. If everything looks good, save settings, apply changes, and your unit's up and running actually fairly quickly. But it's in the network tab that you kind of really get into the meat of the unit. This is where you can definitely get your hands dirty with settings. First up, of course, the WAN options. This is again where you're going to see some of the broad strokes information. Connectivity method, routing mode, if this is an always on for load balancing option, or in a backup group if you wanted to only use in particular circumstances, as well as being able to enable IPv6 pass-through functionality for one connection at this time. Once you have gone ahead and made those decisions, you can actually drill into the WAN and start to see some of the detailed information, or if you're going for a manual config, this is where you would go right away. Connection method, connection type, speeds, your interface settings, if you're setting up dynamic DNS, health check, etc. Under the LAN, this is where you do have the ability to go ahead and on current firmware set up multiple internal networks via VLAN. You're going to build a VLAN tag, assign a particular DNS and subnet to it, and away you go. This is also actually where you set up drop-in mode. Most people do get a bit confused here because this does affect your WAN connectivity, but because this is a bridge from WAN to LAN, we go ahead and set up things here. This is also where it will tell you, once you set up drop-in mode, there are a number of functions related to routing that, of course, are disabled because we're a piece of wire for all intents and purposes for that connection. Moving on, if you don't decide to do drop-in mode, this is where you can also go ahead and set up your DHCP information for your internal network. And on current firmware with our multi-LAN port units, you do have the ability to go ahead and set up port-based VLANs if you wanted to only pass a particular subnet or all the available subnets via an access or a trunk port. VPN connectivity is done via the network tab as well. First up, of course, our proprietary SpeedFusion connectivity, our Peplink to Peplink VPN that does allow for bonding, aggregation, etc., as well as limited IPsec VPN support. Of course, we do only Cisco, Juniper, or other Peplink devices officially. Outbound policy is handled under the network tab as well. This is, of course, how you designate load balancing for your LAN to internet traffic. We do have a variety of ways that you can set up rules for the unit, and then you can go ahead and get pretty granular with your configuration. Inbound access as well is done here under the network tab. And depending on the unit you have, it's either all done in a one-stop port forwarding setup, or as illustrated here, What you're doing is you're setting up a host on the inside your server that you're pushing the traffic to, and then services, which is going to be the type of application that you're pushing to that particular device. On most of our units, they do have the ability to act as authoritative DNS, allowing you to go ahead and build the information on the balance, and then you just merely update the registrar with the additional IPs that are in place. Once you have things up and running, this does give you the ability for hosted services, email server, website, etc., where if one WAN does go down, you still have a path in for that host name you've registered. You can either have it again as a failover state or have it report like when you do an NS lookup, where it's going to report all the WAN information that you've set up here as authoritative. One-to-one NAT mappings, also done under the Network tab. This is again, of course, where you're going ahead and setting up, tying a public to a private IP on the inside, a WAN to a LAN path to push all traffic through, as opposed to the application level that we do under inbound access. All of our units, when used with our Wi-Fi gear, our APs, etc., do have the ability for the AP controller. Now, when that's where the captive portal originally stepped in, allowing you to set up a splash page for your internal network that they have to agree to terms and conditions, etc., before getting onto the internet. We have now, of course, spun out the captive portal from the Wi-Fi only deployments, where it applies to everything on the particular subnet, the LAN network, and you can set that up here under the Network tab. Quality of service, of course, this is where you have the ability to prioritize traffic based on a few different metrics. We do have the ability to set up user groups, where you can then set up a percent of total available bandwidth or a individual bandwidth cap for everybody for a particular IP and subnet. So first step, of course, is setting up your user groups. This is where you're designating the IP range that for one of our three groups, manager, staff, or guest, and then you move on to bandwidth control. This is again where you're deciding if you're doing it on a group level or capping everybody within that group. We do also have application level QoS, where you can designate for a particular traffic type if you're looking to prioritize or deprioritize that traffic. All of our balances are able to be deployed as an SPI firewall, allowing you to set both inbound, outbound, or if you do have VPNs set up, internal network to internal network firewall rules to allow or deny traffic accordingly. And then we have also recently added a content filter, where this allows you to start screening again based on the application type if there is traffic you don't want your network to have access to. If you do set up the content filter, of course, you do have the ability to exempt groups or particular subnets from the rules that everybody else has to follow. We do have limited OSPF and RIP v2 support. You set this up under the Network tab. And then we do have the ability to allow client-based VPNs to terminate against the balance. We do support L2TP as well as PPTP, where you're setting up the information within the balance, and then your remote user has the ability to connect up to the unit just with standard Windows, Mac client, etc. Our miscellaneous settings kind of are a little catch-all bucket. This is where you do have the ability to deploy a unit if supported in high availability mode. We do have a limited certificate manager, as well as our VoIP SIP pass-through support if you do need to disable SIP ALG, designate custom ports for it, etc. Next tab up is the AP controller. And then with the AP controller, this is again where you're going to set up the balance to manage its local APs. And you do so here just under that first AP tab. You're designating if it's everybody on the network or just particular serial numbers that you wanted to keep an eye out for. The toolbox, once you have your units up and running, does allow you some of those further management options with firmware, etc. And then you get into the settings itself. This is where you're building the SSID settings, usernames, passwords, whether or not we're deploying in 2.4 or 5 gigahertz and get this pushed down to those onto the network. Once you have the APs up and running, you do have the ability to keep an eye on things on a wide variety of metrics, bandwidth utilization, client connectivity, and you can go ahead and use search filters to go ahead and make the searches easier for you to use. System is where we're taking a look more of just that, the systemic information of the balance. First up, of course, setting up admin access to the unit for those wanting to hit the unit from the outside. You're designating a WAN and an AP, as well as setting up your username and passwords, custom ports, etc. Firmware is done under the System tab. We do have, of course, our firmware checker, or you can manually upload files straight to the balance to get the firmware update taken care of. As you can see here, In Control does certainly manage this part as well, but if you want a more hands-on approach, this is available to you. Configuration options allows you to grab a copy of the config out of the unit if you want to keep it set aside for emergency purposes, unit upgrades, etc. You do have the ability to download and upload if you had to factory reset the unit, for example, or move on to another one. Our system information options basically are where you can set up getting updates from the unit directly. We do have our email notification within the unit for about a half a dozen information states. Firmware update available, WAN up, down, box up, down, SpeedFusion up, down, etc. And then you can certainly have your information, the event log, dumped to a remote SNMP server, and you just go ahead and set the information up here. Other configuration options available under System, of course, is making sure, again, you're setting your time zone properly, whether or not you want In Control to manage a unit, or if you're doing this on site. For a lot of units, you can buy software unlocks. With our Balance 1, for example, there is the ability to change LAN WANs, SpeedFusion add-ons, etc. Once you purchase it, you're given a key. And you put this here under the feature activation portion, copy, paste, and away you go. And also being able to boot into either flashbank that the unit has. We have a number of diagnostic tools available as well to make sure to start the troubleshooting process. You can ping out a particular WAN interface, do trace routes, and then we do have our wake on LAN functionality. If you do have a local client that isn't responding, if you know the MAC address, you can put that into the balance and then go ahead and send a wake request to the unit to see if it's up and running. Finally, our status tab. This is again where you're going to get more of the information, the monitoring aspect of the balance. First up, of course, under the device tab, we got our system information options, which is going to give you the broad strokes of the unit, model number, firmware, serial number, uptime, etc. And then you can start to drill into the traffic applications with our active sessions. Active sessions is going to show you inbound, outbound, and internal traffic going on a session-by-session moment. This is not real time, so it's a case of think of it more as a snapshot, of what's going through the unit. Refresh it upon occasion, and you can see what you have going through. It does give you fairly detailed information. We have both our, the session type, the source IP, the destination IP, as well as the interface it's using, etc. Client list will show you what's on your local network, IP address, names that are reported, MAC addresses, so you can see if you have any rogue clients on the network that need to be addressed. And the event log is showing you what's going on through the unit on the system level. As you can see here, we have some dynamic DNS up-down events, some various logins, etc. It's kind of a good first step to take a look at once you have troubleshooting issues that you do need to address, is to see if there are some system level of notifications hitting the unit. Now with the event log, this is from time of last reboot, so it does clear the log out. So the closer to the event that you take a look at things gives you a better chance to try to get some of that important information if we need to dig in further. And then we get to the usage reports. This is bandwidth going through the unit on a real-time, hourly, daily, or monthly notification. With the real-time event, you do have this as a aggregated transfer. Basically, it's adding up all of the connections up and download at a particular moment. Then it will go down and start to give you for each WAN which that's passing data. So if you have a WAN that isn't performing up to snuff, this is a good first place to take a look at matters. When you get into the historical reports, both on the hourly, daily, and monthly level, this does actually give you the ability to drill in a bit further to take a look what was going on through that particular time frame. As you can see here on the screen, it does give you hyperlinks that you can click onto that once you drill into it, it will start to show you the client information, the IP, as well as the up and download bandwidth that they're using during that time frame. So if you need to see if you have a particular client abusing the network, the bandwidth reports is a great place to go to. Honestly, that's about what I have today here. It's kind of a dive through the interface to take a look to see what the balance front faces you right away. There are a number of configuration options available, a number of diagnostic options available as well to make sure that you're getting the most out of your unit. I would love further questions. Julie, do we have anything available?
Yes, Jason. Hi. Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation.
No problem.
I do have some questions for you.
Perfect.
First one. Can I use the AP controller for my kiosk POS service?
It is only Peplink devices, so the AP controller does only control our PepWave AP line. The AP1, the AP AC Mini, the Enterprise, etc.
Thank you. Next question. If I have multiple kiosks in several different malls, would I be able to manage all of them from my home office?
Potentially, depending on what you have deployed to the unit. This gets a little bit outside of the scope of what we're talking today, but if you are using Peplink devices at each of these kiosks, you can, of course, keep an eye on your whole deployment via our cloud-based management tool in Control2. Once you register the devices there, you start to get a lot of this same diagnostic information that you'll see within the UI kicked up to the cloud, as well as the ability for firmware updates, grabbing configurations, etc. It is a gigantic value add as long as you have access to it.
Thank you very much. Next question. Can I power the Peplink hardware with solar, or do the devices come with solar panel kits for remote setup?
They do not come with solar panel kits for setup. Depending on the Peplink that you have, there are actually a variety of connection methods. I do know some of our outdoor APs, for example, do have alternative power connection sources to it that I have heard solar panels were used with. Thinking of a client in Arizona who had one for a remote camera deployment, but it's not natively. You're basically pairing the units with third party.
Thank you very much. Next question. In regards to the system information options, can email notification be changed to text notification?
Popular feature request. I do know SMS is coming, not yet, but it will. I don't feel bad by saying it will happen. Just keep an eye on the forum. Is when we'll let everybody know.
Thank you. Does Peplink have a forum to help out with configurations and concerns?
Absolutely. We have actually a fairly active forum community. It's forum, Forum, .peplink.com. Both staff, power users, other partners. It's a very eclectic mix of people in there. We do actually have a section in the forum called the Design Workshop, where you can throw up network diagrams to get input on. Absolutely, the forum is a great resource for that sort of thing.
Excellent, thank you. Next question. How does Peplink handle the workload of an automated control system in an industrial, agricultural, cultivation facility where there are data logs generated on every light, every fan 24/7, environmental readings on temperature and humidity, and numerous other power features? Can one AP router handle the data feeds from 100 lights, 50 fans, and hundreds of other smaller sensors?
Depends on the AP you're using, of course. As far as the specs for the Wi-Fi gear, we do have data sheets up on the site. Just again, peplink.com, you would go under the WLAN option, and then with what we're talking about here, I'd point you to the it'd be the enterprise, actually both sections, the enterprise and the industrial. We have, again, APs that kind of cover all major deployments from residential to deploy on an oil rig out in the middle of nowhere. The caveat that I always give people is to make sure that you're sizing appropriately. We do have recommended users, possible available bandwidth. We list those on the site to allow you to make sure that you're grabbing, the best tool for the job. The broad answer is sure. I would probably look at the outdoor units more specifically than the indoor. They have more client capability, especially when you start to pair it with our balanced line of products. But I will say, generally speaking, the APs handle about 60 concurrent clients at a given moment. If we're talking hundreds, I would be remiss if I didn't say you're probably going to need more than one, to be honest, or at least pair it with the device connectors to cover, to kind of load balance.
Thank you, Jason. Final question here.
Sure.
What options does a customer have for his Peplink router if the warranty expires?
Well, kind of an open-ended question, but if the warranty is expired, it's a case of if we do get to, let's go to the worst case scenario first. If we get to the need of RMA or hardware replacement, if you're out of warranty, there's going to be some money involved because we do have for our blue chip series an out of warranty repair service where, it generally, you pay a fee up front. We do get you a replacement unit. And then it's a case of getting the original back to us to kind of complete the transaction. If we're not, if we haven't gotten that far yet, if you are out of warranty, we take the tack that we're not really going to hang the phone up on you if you have questions or need help. But we would make sure that we're guiding you through the right channels. The team at Microcom would be the first touch base here, and then if they can't answer, they can bring us in. The forum is always available. We do actually have a fairly active social media campaign that we do answer questions on as well. So the soft answer is just that. We'll certainly help as we can, but if it does get to the point where we got to talk equipment replacements, there may be some fees involved. Is the short answer.
Thank you, Jason, for answering those questions.
Sure.
Greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And also thank you to everyone for attending today. If you have any other questions, please feel free to contact your sales rep or email us at sales@microcomtech.com. Please remember this webinar presentation has been recorded and it will be uploaded to our Microcom YouTube channel so you can view it again. Thanks again, Jason. We greatly appreciated it. Thank you for your time to everyone, and everyone have a wonderful day.
Thanks so much for letting me talk to you guys here. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.